Hello, welcome to another episode of A Transplant. I'm your host, Sarah Adedeji, and this is my cousin Larry. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Larry, where have you lived? Where were you born, and then where have you lived?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, of course.
I was born in Homer, Louisiana, which is in the very northern part of the state. I was only there for a few months before my family transplanted themselves from Homer to Dayton, Ohio, in search of a better job, because that was in the 50s, and that was a part of that big black migration thing that was going on from the south to the north.
Wow.
So, I have more memories growing up in Dayton, Ohio. That's kind of like home for me.
Yeah. And then so from Dayton, how was growing up in Dayton? And then once you kind of grew up in Dayton, how did you decide where to live?
Well, I had no plans to move away from Dayton. Kind of was just taking one day at a time. Coming out of high school, I thought that I wanted to be a musician. And so I ended up moving to Atlanta in my mid 20s because some guys that I knew had a band there and they needed someone to play trumpet. So I grabbed my stuff and moved to Atlanta. And I'm there for about a year until things don't work out because the group didn't stay together.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I realized I didn't like that kind of volatility and a lack of control over such a major part of my life. So that's when I went back to Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, and enrolled at Central State University in computer science.
Nice. That's a long way from being a musician.
Yeah, well, that I think that experience living in Atlanta, because I really didn't know anyone else there other than the guys in the band. I didn't have a car. This was in the 70s,
Oh, wow.
mid 70s. So before smartphones, before the internet.
Right.
So when that band kind of fell apart and it felt like my foundation was kind of slowly just eroding away. And I was like, you know what? I really don't like this. So I had to, do some deep soul searching and some considerable planning on what my future was going to look like.
Mm.
So I thought about what I know, what's in the news, and the fact that I'm somewhat of a science fiction nerd. I was a big fan of Star Trek,
Oh, nice.
and I like Mr. Spock. So that's kind of how I ended up doing computer science.
That's interesting.
I also liked oceanography.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember who ever heard this guy named Jacques Cousteau. He
Yes.
used to do these documentaries
Yeah.
about going into the ocean and all that. And so I said, you know what? Seems like computers are going to be the next big thing. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. And my undergraduate time at Central State University went very well for me. I did well in school, even though I wasn't a good high school student. And I think that's an example of how much your motivation, personal drive makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Because I know my life is at stake now.
Right.
So yeah, I had a 3 point something average
Yeah.
after barely graduating from high school.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, I got a job before I graduated college with a major computer company and lived in Dayton, Ohio still. They had an office there. And after about 5 years, I ended up working for a bigot. and he tried to tarnish my reputation in the office. Fortunately, the office manager was one of us, and I explained to him what was going on, and he said, "I understand what happened, and the best thing I can offer you is supporting you in a relocation." It just so happens my colleague and coworker, um, Eula Moore, um, she worked for the same company, and we went to the same university. And
Wow.
she had already relocated to Atlanta and
Okay.
said, "Larry, you need to come to Atlanta. Larry, you need to come." And I said, yeah, maybe one day. So
Been
this
there, done.
situation comes up. So I'll say, well, I guess it's time.
Yeah. Wow.
So I accepted the position and made that transition to Atlanta. So it's, that's another example I see of sometimes door closing may seem like a negative time in your life, but somehow cloaked beneath that or within that, it's a better opportunity for you. And you just don't see it at the time.
Absolutely. Because you've been in Atlanta how long now?
35 years.
I'm like, as long as I've been alive, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, that's awesome. So, once you got to Atlanta, what do you feel like was different? I mean, obviously the job was different, but besides that, what do you feel like was different from that first time that made you say, you know what, I actually want to stay this time?
Um, First thing that comes to mind is the weather. Growing up in Ohio, I walked to school about a
Wow.
mile. Even in the winter, when it was freezing and slush on the curves, I walked to school. And so to have a winter that really didn't get that cold, I didn't get frostbite. Growing
Right.
up in Ohio, frostbite was kind of a regular thing, but
Right.
not in Georgia. I say, yeah, I could settle down here. I could
Yeah,
deal with this.
that's fair.
I like the weather also because, like, when there's a tropical storm or a hurricane that does hit Florida or the coast of Georgia, by the time it gets to Atlanta, it's toned down. It may be just heavy rain and winds,
Right.
nothing that serious. So
Right.
it's kind of the warmth of the tropics, and this is just a nice moderate weather zone for me.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
then yeah, and so it was cool that I knew someone that lived there, so
Right.
that helps with the transition when you know people and you don't have to start from scratch because all of us need some kind of a support system,
Absolutely.
and so I didn't have to start from scratch, so that made it pretty easy. It's kind of familiar with the area. One of the biggest challenges though was, I think, kind of unique to Atlanta, is because it's like they got mental deficiency when it came to naming streets. There's
What do
probably
you
hundreds
mean?
of there's probably hundreds of streets that have Peachtree in the name.
Oh. So it's like they ran out of names. They're like,
Yeah,
everything's got
it's
to be
like they
with
ran out of
Peach.
names. Well, let's just call it Peachtree Pine, Peachtree Apple, Peachtree Circle, and so and then the city is divided up in quadrants. And so if you don't look carefully at the dress, like when I was shopping for a house, and if you didn't carefully take note of like what city, what's the zip code, you might go on the way east side of Atlanta when your destination is actually on the south side.
Mhm.
Because it can be the same street, but because it says southwest, but you're actually going to southeast,
Wow.
it's 20, 30 miles away.
Yeah, that's a
And,
challenge
and
for sure.
that's when I was relying on maps,
Right.
not GPS.
The paper map.
Paper maps, yeah. And I'm driving around. It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like the right neighborhood for the house that I'm looking for. And then I go back and double check the address. I say, oh, Southeast. So
I
thanks.
get lost with the GPS. I can't even imagine paper maps. Ugh, yeah.
Oh, I understand. I lived through both eras, so and I still find it fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like, how did we do this before that? No GPS and no cell phones.
And when I was younger, we had MapQuest and stuff, or like the little handheld. Like it wasn't necessarily on our phone, but
Yeah,
even still, like I don't know,
but the thing is,
technology.
back then, MapQuest MapQuest felt like the future.
Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, all you got to do is put in your source destination, click, and it gives you a map.
Right.
Because
We can
before,
print it
you
out
had to
and
fold
step
out
by
those
step
big things
directions.
and
Yeah.
maybe cut out the section that you need
Wow.
in the
That's
car
right.
trying to find your way and drive at the same time. So
Yeah,
glad
like
those
how would
days
you
are
make a
over.
road trip by yourself? I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. So, besides the maps and the quadrants and the street names, what do you feel like were some of the challenges you encountered? And maybe not even in your first year, but just like over your 35 years.
One of the challenges was the government slash um, police system.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is, so in Atlanta, you have the city of Atlanta, which is really not that big. Atlanta sits in Fulton County.
right.
So you have the city of Atlanta police. And like I said, Atlanta is not that big, but you just get right outside of Atlanta city. And then it's Fulton County. Then you have Fulton County police.
Mm,
Atlanta has grown over the decades. So it has encompassed it, not encompassed, but enclosed like a lot of smaller communities. So
mm.
every 5 or 10 miles, you're actually in a different city, and they have their
Wow.
own police, and you might be in a different county, and that was quite different because living in Ohio, it was Dayton, Ohio, and Montgomery County until you got to Columbus. Then that was Franklin County and Columbus.
Right.
That and little things like the food's different. Uh, a
Like
lot
good
of soul
different, or
food.
I mean, I guess we're talking about challenges. So, what about the food?
Oh, just that. How can I say it? Like in Ohio we said pop, but
What
in
is that?
Georgia it's soda.
Oh, pop. I thought you said a bop. I was like, what's a bop?
Pop, yeah,
Pop soda, yeah.
yeah, and
Or
then
if you're in the South, like the deep South is Coke. Everything's Coke.
yeah, and tea versus sweet tea.
Right.
Sweet tea is standard in the South, but in the North, not so much.
Right. Yeah, you gotta specify.
Yeah, and little dialectical things in the way that people speak, um, the way they give directions was different.
Can you give an example of that one?
Yeah, so um, in the Atlanta metro, people, at least when I first moved here, people used to tend to use landmarks as
Mm,
reference points as
gotcha.
opposed to street names or highway names.
That's because it's main peach trees.
Yeah, yeah. So in the northeast part of the Atlanta metro is a city called Marietta,
Right, I've heard of that.
and one of the big landmarks in Marietta is the Big Chicken.
Uh,
So people will tell you, "Oh, just go down the road till you see the Big Chicken, and then you turn left, and 3 miles and you're there." Okay, what's the Big Chicken? the Big Chicken is a very unique KFC building.
Wow.
It's an actual KFC restaurant, but it looks like a big chicken. It's like 3 stories tall,
Wow. I'm gonna have to Google it.
and it's kind of like a diamond shaped to look like a chicken. It's
That's
got
so
big
cool.
eyes and a beak. You know, you can see it for about a mile before you get there.
Wow. Well, I guess it's a big thing.
Yeah,
That's funny. I could see how that would be like, okay, but like, what is the big chicken? Where? How do I get there? So that's
you know,
funny.
wherever you live, people tend to think everyone is familiar with landmarks.
Right. And you're like, I just got here. I'm still trying to figure out where I live.
Yeah,
That's a
so you
long
know,
way.
it was a benefit to me that I have a lot of patience and attention to detail and persistence.
Absolutely. So, what were some ways? I know you transferred there for your job, but what were some other ways that you got settled? Uh, yeah, what were some ways that you got settled in when you moved?
Um, Taking advice from the people that I knew that lived there, because you know there was so much, only so much information you can get from reading books and guides and that kind of thing. But
Mm,
just trying to talk to people and find out what you like about living here, that part of town, versus that part of town. Where'd you used to live? Why did you move away?
mm,
Um, Somehow I discovered talk radio. I don't think I paid attention to talk radio until I moved to Atlanta, and my commutes were an hour plus.
oof. Yeah, I've heard about the traffic.
Yeah,
Yes, too.
well, that was because where my job was located was about 30 miles from where I lived. And it wasn't too bad then because uh, I was going against traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, listen to the radio, just discovering different things to listen to. I discovered talk radio. So then that's when I tuned into local stations for traffic details so I can
Mm,
find out where the traffic jams are and avoid those areas. And
mm,
that led to other things like listening to discussions about local issues and crime and government and politics. And that kind of helps you, navigate many things, many areas of my life as far as
right.
where to live, where to go, where to go to get good food, best places to shop.
True.
So I really, connect. So that was it between um, the people who I knew personally and listening to um, local black talk shows was a deeper, more thorough connection to the community to
Mm,
to get information conveyed that I needed to make
nice.
decisions for my life.
Yep. That's really interesting. I think finding out like about your community through different talk radio and things like that, I think that's really important because it's something that I think a lot of people often don't think about. They're trying to, and me included, trying to get involved in like um, things that are, more social and just kind of understanding your little bubble, but kind of connecting with those other pieces and learning more about the broader community, I think is really important. Something that I need to think about. Since we just moved, I probably should start doing that. Thank you
But
for
yeah,
that. Yeah. So, if you could go back and tell yourself what you know now, like yourself 35 years ago, what you know now, like what advice would you give yourself?
oh, that's a good question.
Like,
um, with regard to anything, or
Yeah, anything.
I think I would have taken advantage of um, the real estate market and gentrification
Interesting. Can you
because
expand
that
on
because that is a very I think that is a force that has a lot of momentum that comes in waves because it affects different. I've seen it affect different parts of the metropolitan area differently,
that?
but it's consistent. It's like, people are moving to this area, and like where I live now, we've been there for 12 years,
Mm,
and the cost of our house has nearly tripled in that
mm.
time.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I had known that um,
About a couple more houses.
35 years ago, I could have planned accordingly, you know, probably gotten some properties for pennies on the dollar,
Wow. Triple in 12 years. Wow.
and I don't even want to do the math of if I had like bought something 25 years ago.
Right? Wow. So that leads me to ask, what did you do in regards to, especially like you said, there wasn't um, like a lot of internet or different things like that. How did you go about finding a place to live when you moved initially?
Um, Classified ads,
Okay.
newspapers, um, word of mouth, the old fashioned way, business cards. I go in a restaurant and they have the board with all the business cards or a shelf.
Right.
Um, yeah, I used to have a book, and so I will put them in there alphabetically for what kind of services they were offered. So that way, when I needed someone who did plumbing, for instance, I could go,
Yeah.
do I have a plumber? And if I didn't have that, I look for something similar and call that person and, hey, do you know, like maybe he's a carpenter. Hey, say, I know you're a carpenter, but do you know a plumber? I need one bad.
Right. It's like you made your own little white pages.
Yeah,
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. And so, with that, like, what are some challenges that you feel like, even over the past 35 years, that you've encountered? And then how did you navigate those?
challenges. Okay, so okay, one of the biggest challenges was in I got downsides from the job that I relocated to Atlanta for.
Oh, no.
So I had been with the company for 19 years
Wow.
and got downsized.
Huh. Oh,
And at the time, I wasn't worried
mm,
because I had time on the job. And classically, um, something like that is an asset. The fact that you've been with a company 19 years, you had this
right.
amount of experience doing the job. And I said I had problems finding a job because what had happened is my career was kind of focused more along providing customer service in the
Mm,
area of technical support dealing with computers and software.
right.
Well, during those first 10 years that I was here, there rather, I got kind of comfortable in my career. So what happens in the meantime is that um, software support services, um, they went in the direction of documenting what problems are and what those solutions are. So it doesn't necessarily take someone with problem solving skills to assist people over the phone if you have everything or most things written down with solutions. That means they can hire someone with less academic credentials to do the job that I've been doing.
Wow.
Yeah. So they get someone fresh out of school and give them
And
my
pay them,
job,
right?
give them the manual or the link to the documentation, and they can do my job.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. What error are you getting? Just a moment. Oh, for that error, you need to do this, 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 and this. So, my solution to that challenge was first of all, I had to go into survival mode. I had to do whatever I could do to make money.
Right.
That meant taking jobs that I'm overqualified for, working in retail, working in restaurants. I had a friend who had a catering business. I worked with him as a bartender. So he would do private parties on the weekends, and I was the bartender. So I got tips and I got paid for being a bartender.
Right.
In the meantime, I continued to network with people. Um, I also um, was thankful for what I've had in my life experiences. I also had vision. I set a goal for myself. Um, I wanted to make X number of dollars, and I would do things like gratitude journaling. It wasn't called that back then, but that's what it was. Uh,
Yeah.
Affirmations, that kind of thing. So through networking, um, the same the same friend, colleague, sister who said, "Larry, you need to relocate to Atlanta." Um, Through her, I ended up finding a job with another company, making more money than I have ever made.
Okay, God.
Yeah, fantastic. And so I'm doing that job and I'm coasting along. And one day I'm going through some personal papers and I like to keep a lot of stuff. So I'm looking through this notebook where I had done some journaling and some affirmations. And I see where I said, okay, I want to make this much money per month. I could not believe it. It was the exact amount of money I got hired to do that latest job on.
Wow.
It
That's
was six.
amazing.
It was 60,000 a year, which translated to $5,000 a month.
That's awesome.
I was like, wow. So the short answer to your question though was perseverance, not giving up, creativity, using as many resources that I see available to me, and being determined.
Absolutely. So, what have been um, something that you feel like has been something that has been unexpectedly surprising? I don't know how to word it, but what is something that you're like, oh wow, that surprised me about myself on your journey?
Oh well, that's kind of easy. So I'm retired now officially.
Okay,
So
congratulations.
and I actually retired a little earlier than I initially planned to because of some conflict that I had with an employer, and I'm dealing with
Mm,
a health challenge, and they weren't supportive. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to retire. So when they thought that I was coming back to work after being on disability, I gave them my retirement letter.
Mm.
So I'm not the type a person to just retire and okay, so I don't have anything to do now, so I'm just going to sit back and watch the sunrise every day and the sunset. That's not enough life for me.
Right.
So I just try different stuff. So I discovered background acting
Yeah.
in Atlanta. I'm listening to talk radio again, and there's a guy being interviewed, and he's talking about these acting opportunities that don't have um, any requirements as far as experience as an actor.
Oh, nice.
So I said, oh, okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
And I found myself on set one day, and I'm seeing how movies and TVs is being made.
That's
And
amazing.
I'm looking at it and say, I think I can do this. I
Okay.
have time. I'm retired now. So I started taking some acting classes, and um, I'm on Facebook, and I see a post. This filmmaker who's a student at Clayton State University in Georgia. They're doing a student film, and they're looking for actors. So I submit for that, and I get that.
That's so cool.
So that's my officially first speaking role,
Wow.
and so I do that, and it just started some momentum. So now I have an agent.
Ooh, okay, agent.
Yeah, one of the bigger agents in Atlanta.
That's so cool.
Um, Atlanta Models and Talent. I guess I'm entitled to say that.
Go ahead and plug them. Go ahead and plug 'em.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not that's something that I. It's not something that I set out to do. It just kind of fell into the rhythm of my life, and it just felt like that was the right way to go. It's like how um, people with a good sense of direction can find their way through a city. Some people can have a good sense of direction and find their way through the woods without any tools or compass or anything. They can just find their way. And so when this acting thing and finding your way is just something inside you that tells you, yes, you're going in the right direction. And that's how this acting thing kind of has happened. And it has its ups and downs. But I do like it because it's not as confining and restrictive as a day-to-day job where you have to clock in and you have a schedule every day, every week.
Right. That's so
Like
cool.
I'm actually visiting my cousin on my mom's side of the family in Texas now.
Oh no. What
Yeah,
part of Texas are you in? Well,
Dallas.
hey, you didn't tell me. We gotta connect.
I thought you were in Houston.
Nope, I'm in Dallas.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, we got to connect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that surprised me. I mean, if you had asked me 5 years ago, do you think you would be doing auditions for this production or this TV commercial?
Yeah.
I'd be like, no. But here I am.
Yeah. And I've seen you and is it Coming to America too? Or is it
Yeah.
like just Coming to America?
Well,
I
they're the
couldn't remember.
same thing. The
Hey,
original one was, Eddie Murphy when he was really young.
right, right, right. I've seen them both. I actually had the first one on DVD. I got it. I don't know why I got it, but I wanted it and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I know it's the second one, but I couldn't remember how they named it. But I was like,
Yeah, I think they coming with the number two, America.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah, you can see me several times in that if you look closely.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I
And
screenshot it one of the times. I was like, Sam. That's
yeah,
cool.
that was a cool production
Yeah.
because I don't know if you remember the scene where um, the John Amos character, he's talking to Eddie Murphy, and they're in the restaurant. He does like a frosty. Well, that's
Like at
not really.
McDowell's?
Hmm, yeah,
Like at McDowell's?
Egg McDowell's, and he's like does a soft serve ice cream thing. That's not John Amos's hands. That's
Wow.
doing that frosty. Those are my hands. Yeah,
Really?
and
Watch a video.
that's when I learned how specialized acting can be. You know, there are
Yeah.
hand models because we're sitting and holding while we're shooting that, and the director comes up to where we're sitting, playing cards and chess and just talking, and they're coming there looking for someone who is has a similar complexion to John Amos, and they come to me and they tell
Wow.
me that's what we want you to do.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah,
really
so
cool. I knew that like they kind of switch out the actors when they're talking to each other. It's like if you see the back of somebody's head, it's not really that person's head. But I didn't even think about the hand.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, that's a whole nother thing about how they shoot uh, conversations like that. They'll shoot
Yeah.
the whole conversation from one angle, then they'll say, okay, uh, they'll shut it down, take a break, and they'll do the same setup but from the opposite angle, and then
Yeah.
the actors do the same lines over and over again.
Wow.
And like you said, they probably won't use the actor. They'll probably use what's called a photo double,
Wow.
someone
I was thinking it was oh, okay, yeah.
who looks similar enough to the
Yeah.
actor that from the back you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. When you said a photo double, I was thinking like it was like a photo, but you meant like people are the photo double.
He
I
looks
was like,
kind
wait
of
a minute,
like,
that's all a picture?
yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah. They got
That's so
photo doubles. They got stand-ins. So there's a lot of different um, types of acting jobs you could get.
yeah, that's awesome. I guess I really do need to listen to talk radio now because that sounds so cool.
Yeah,
Find
it's
out about
still,
that on talk radio.
and talk radio, and I guess the unique thing about talk radio is the types of shows where they let the local people call it in.
Mm.
Because that's one thing I don't think you can. I haven't heard that on YouTube,
Right, true.
but these talk radio shows that I listen to, they can be annoying sometimes because you have the same people that call the talk radio show every day,
Mm.
and sometimes they're annoying. But the host has to be polite and thank you to every call. But if you sift through all that, that there's value that can be found
Absolutely.
and
I love
meaningful stuff. So that's
it.
that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell the people before we wrap up?
Sure. I'll tell you this. Um, I do have no regrets about relocating from Ohio to Georgia. I enjoy telling people that live there that I don't own an ice scraper anymore.
That's nice. That's real nice. Coming
Yeah.
from Pennsylvania, taking about 2 hours to clean my car. That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah, so I enjoyed being here with you, doing this
Me
interview.
too.
Thank you for the
Thank you so much.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate having you and sharing your story, your wisdom, and the plug for anybody who's in Atlanta looking for an agency.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening or watching another episode of A Transplant Tale. See ya. Thank you for listening to another episode of A Transplant Tale. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. See ya.